Hey, what's going on, everyone? How you guys doing today? My name is Matt Jarbo. This is Three Buck Theater. And earlier today, we got a little bit of information, finally, after all this time, about Ghostbusters Afterlife. Sony dropped this particular image, which I gotta say, just for a teaser poster, looks pretty fantastic. Blowing it up, looking here at the Ecto One, just looks awesome. It is the original Ecto One. For some reason, it's rocking its way through a hayfield, but of course, as we see, there is something dark on the horizon, but we're not too sure what that is yet. But we did get a bit of information coming out of this particular Vanity Fair profile saying first look at Ghostbusters Afterlife. Director Jason Reitman conjures the spirit of the 1984 original in the upcoming film, which focuses on a single mom and her two kids. Now, unfortunately, there's going to be people out there that are not going to be happy about that, right? Because if you look at the original idea of Ghostbusters, it was a workplace comedy, but like a workman's comedy, right? Like a blue collar comedy, but played absolutely straight, even though the fundamentals of the world around them were going crazy. And that is something that I'm really wondering if it's going to be able to be maintained in this. And I think it will, because Jason Reitman is going to be definitely watched by his father. But I still am just kind of curious. So let's go through the article bit by bit and see what it says. So it says hauntings are real. They happen all the time, although not necessarily in a supernatural sense. Regrets about the past, guilt over lost moments, unfinished business. The single mom and her two kids at the center of Ghostbusters Afterlife have all of these conflicts, complications, and issues. But on top of that, this family is also dealing with the actual free floating, full torso vaporous apparitions, focused non terminal repeating phantasms, and full on class 5 full roaming vapors. Real nasty ones, too. A trailer for the July 10th film will debut on Monday, and Vanity Fair's got an exclusive glimpse at the characters at the heart of the story, with The Leftovers' Carrie Coon starring as Mom Callie, I, Tanya's McKenna Grace as her science-obsessed daughter Phoebe, and Stranger Things' Finn Wolfhard as the gearhead son Trevor. They have left everything they know and moved to a small town in Oklahoma after inheriting property from the father she didn't know. And this is, again, this is what we think right now. Is right now everyone's thinking that this is Egon, right? This is Egon's daughter, that Egon had a kid and she didn't know him. And knowing Egon and his love of science and how he would have gone after science, it probably makes the most sense that he would have just gone that way. You know, he wouldn't have been the family man. He would have always wanted to work on science. And of course, we don't know what the events are following Ghostbusters 2, which did show them 5 years later, complete in disrepute. You know, the Ghostbusters had been disbanded and they were all doing different things. So it's safe to say that 30 some odd years later, it would make sense that that probably would happen again. But let's dive in more. So it says director and co-writer Jason Reitman takes over filmmaking duties from his own father, Ivan Reitman, who directed the original two Ghostbusters films, and returns for this one as a producer. Afterlife is a new adventure that connects back to the Manhattan Crossrip of 1984, Reitman said. Unlike the 2016 all-female reboot, which started its story from scratch and existed in a different storytelling universe. And we all know how badly that one turned out. And even this one here doesn't frame it at all in any kind of good way, right? You can just tell that everyone likes the Manhattan Cross Rip. But if you don't know what it is, the Manhattan Cross Rip is a technical term for that long ago bizarre incident in New York involving an apocalypse summoning skyscraper, a gargantuan killer marshmallow man, and four working stiffs who managed to fight back against an ancient Sumerian god named Gozer. Most of the original cast has committed to returning to their classic characters, although it's not sure in what capacity they'll appear. Harold Ramis died 5 years ago, and Rick Moranis, who has limited screen work in recent years, is not expected to reprise his role. I'm actually thinking to myself, they'll get Rick Moranis. Like, that's going to be a big thing. Now, we probably won't see much of the classic characters until the film itself reveals what became of them over the past 3 decades. Callie and her family are also wondering on how those guys fit into their lives. Well, again, it's probably going to boil down to Egon. Going on to say here that as the family arrives at the old farm, they begin to discover their connection to the original Ghostbusters. Trevor and Phoebe are out to find who their grandfather was and whether they're ready to pick up the proton packs themselves. Reitman doesn't want to confirm much else about the family's history, but people may already notice some familiarity in their appearance. In the collapsing barn of the farmhouse, they find an old car, bloomed with rust. Hidden beneath a tarp, the retro ambulance turned ghost hunting mobile. In this shot, Trevor lays his eyes on the ride for the first time, originally hinted at with the movie's teaser, and that is this shot right here of Finn Wolfhard opening up the door to the barn and seeing what we know after seeing the first teaser is the Ecto-1. And so that's where we find ourselves with him right there. Now, it goes on to say that elsewhere in the house, which is packed with mountains of books and lots of bizarre technology, Phoebe will find a device that reads psychokinetic energy. Ghostbusters fans will immediately recognize it as a tool of the trade from the original movies, saying here that the joy of co-writing a film like this is imagining the sound of Ecto-1's engine revving back to life, or the moment a PKE meter lights up for the first time and begins leading you towards your destiny, says Reitman, who then co-penned the script with Monster House and City of Ember filmmaker Gail Kennan. Now, Monster House is an amazing movie. It really is, especially when dealing with the type of supernatural elements with kids. I 100% recommend it. But for those of you who don't remember what a PK meter is, this is it. What Egon is holding right there, we recognize it from the opening of the movie. This is the PKE meter, and this is what he uses. So we know that that's a fair amount of what's going to be in this house. Is going to be a lot of that. There's going to be a whole bunch of Easter eggs, definitely going back to the original. And I'm pretty certain that this is going to be Egon's home. Now, whether or not Egon and Janine hooked up and had a kid, I don't know. I mean, there was that kind of thing from the first movie, but then in the second one, her and Rick Moranis got together. So we don't quite know yet. Anyway, now while her brother tinkers with the car, Phoebe finds herself transfixed by the mystery of the new town, not just by particular subjects in their dilapidated home, but strange rumblings from a nearby mine. In this shot, she and her schoolmate, played by Logan Kim, ignore warning signs to venture towards that abandoned and dangerous place. And here we got a shot of them here. Now, Phoebe, I thought that was Finn Wolfhard at first. It does look like Finn Wolfhard, but we can clearly see the family resemblance to who we're going for here, right? I mean, look at Finn Wolfhard's hair right there. Look at her hair, and we can totally see exactly what's going on there. So we know we know it's Egon's family. They just don't know anything about him just yet, or why he moved from New York to Oklahoma. But I'm sure all of that will be revealed. Anyway, going on. It says Trevor and Phoebe may actually know less about Ghostbusters than anyone. What happened in 1984 is as mysterious to them as Van Halen and Run DMC is to Billie Eilish. And that's such a dumb Anyway, that's such a dumb pun. Now, fortunately, they have a summer school teacher named Mr. Gruberson, played by Paul Rudd, who was a kid when the Manhattan cross trip occurred. Although later generations may think of it as a myth or not think of it at all, he remembers it obsessively and is excited to pass on what he knows. And we get a shot of him here holding the ghost trap and looking very much like Paul Rudd, very much going, yeah, baby. Yeah, that's great. And that's pretty much the breakdown of what they've got. There's not much more there outside of just this shot right here, showing the Ecto-1 plowing through the field, which is very reminiscent of this particular poster that they gave us. And so, yeah, we don't know much else about the movie, but here's my speculation on it, as if I haven't already been kind of alluding to that as we've been going through this thing. I think that what it is this is Egon's family. Ghostbusters broke up once again. That part I get, whether it's over the fact that there was franchisable elements of it that didn't quite play out, because remember, that's what Dan Aykroyd wanted to do, or at least, well, that's what Venkman wanted to do. And even Aykroyd, talking about the future of the franchise, wanted to talk about Ghostbusters going to different parts of the world. So we don't quite know where that's going to play in. But obviously, this is going to center around Egon and Egon's family, and I'm totally okay with that. Whether or not we get a lot more with Ernie Hudson and Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd and Annie Potts and Sigourney Weaver, and I'm hoping Rick Moranis. I really am hoping they can pull back Rick Moranis, and I think they would be able to do that here. I think if it's getting the band back together, Rick Moranis would be involved. He's limiting his roles, but this is one of those things where it's like everyone's in, Rick. And we're not doing that crappy ass 2016 movie that you were right to avoid. This is straight up the new deal. Now, I'm also curious to know how people are going to respond to this, because when you look at the idea there, right, it's taking place during summer school in Oklahoma with the grandchildren of Egon. It's not going to be considered a passing the torch movie specifically, although it could be viewed that way. These are clearly teenagers that are going to be donning nuclear, proton packs, so to speak, going out there and fighting ghosts. There's a lot there that's going to be deemed unbelievable. And I know that sounds weird when we're talking about the concept of people that are hunting ghosts for a living, like exterminators. But the world that they built in 1984 felt real. It felt grounded. This one, I'm not saying it doesn't feel that way. To me, it actually kind of does, more so than 2016. 2016 felt in no way grounded, in no way realistic. I mean, especially the end of the movie after they blew up the portal and took it all out, and then everything just returned to normal, and they blasted out through like a portal or something, through a wall, like, and no one knew what happened. There's no consequences to that world, but there are consequences to this world. And what I also like is that it's been so long since the Manhattan cross rip. It's been over 30 years, 35 years, 36 years by the time it comes out, that people out there are going to be questioning whether or not it actually happened. And I have a feeling we're going to see a few kind of elements in there revolving around, let's say, government conspiracies or something, which would be quite fascinating. Because if you've been watching The Watchmen on HBO, they also kind of hint at because something happened so long ago, people are questioning whether or not it's real. And I would assume that even going on down the road in our own timeline, our own world, people are going to be looking at something like the events of September 11th and go like, 20, 30 years down the road, did it even really happen the way that we were told that it did? And we're going to see things like that. It's going to come up again in one of those kind of things, because that's just what happens with these big events over time. And granted, those are two fictional events that I'm referring to versus a real one, and I'm not trying to draw comparisons, but that's kind of where my mind went. So, I mean, look at the trutherism surrounding 9/11 is all I'm saying. But I'm very excited to see this trailer. I'm very excited to see what they do with it. I'm hoping that they do callbacks in the trailer. I'm hoping that it really ties it in. I'm hoping Ray Parker Jr. makes an appearance, at least the song. I hope they actually talk to him this time, because 2016 they didn't. And I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful for Ghostbusters, and I don't know. I'm excited, but I'm also really nervous because we've already lived through this once before. Anyway, I do want to hear your thoughts. I want to hear your opinions. Let me know down in the comments below. If you guys haven't already, please like the video, thumbs up, subscribe, notify, bell, all that stuff. I'll talk to you all later. Have yourself a great day, and peace out. This video is supported by patrons like you. If you'd like to become a patron, please head over to patreon.com/Matt Jarbo.